After an exhilarating day with Mrs. Desmond, Ollie returned home, brimming with newfound happiness. Upon arriving, she sought out Sam at the bar, where the warm light highlighted her joyful expression. Sam noticed her uplifted spirit immediately, and Ollie couldn't help but share her delight. She laughed softly, recounting the day's events and the peace she felt. Sam, seeing her so content, seized the moment to apologize for his past behavior and the misunderstandings that had clouded their interactions. "Why were you absent from the party, Sam?" "I remember now," Ollie teased, her tone light yet curious. Sam hesitated, then admitted, "I wasn't part of the plan for that evening." Ollie raised an eyebrow, her laughter ringing through the air. "Not part of what exactly? And where exactly were you? Out with your girlfriend?" "Yes, I was," Sam confessed, a bit sheepishly. Ollie's playful demeanor reassured him as she hinted at meeting his girlfriend someday, to which Sam quickly retorted, "I don't think that will happen, Ollie." Ollie, intrigued, pressed further. "Why is that?" At this moment, Sam took her hand, looking deeply into her eyes, a serious undertone cutting through the playful banter. "A lot has changed since you arrived, Ollie." Ollie sensed the shift in mood and decided to steer the conversation away from any potential discomfort. "You owe your dad an apology for not being there, Sam." Their conversation soon drifted to familial matters, where Ollie noticed the strain between Sam and his father. Sam downplayed the conflicts, insisting it wasn't her burden to bear. "It's nothing serious," he reassured her, his voice carrying a hint of unresolved sadness. As the evening wore on, their talk meandered through memories and shared concerns, with Sam opening up about his brother, whom he described as kind and harmless. Ollie's smile, warm and genuine, filled the room as she acknowledged Sam's affectionate description. "Yes, I am happy now," she affirmed, her heart lightened by their exchange. The night grew late, and after much laughter and heartfelt conversation, Sam escorted Ollie to her room. The hallway echoed with their giggles, a testament to the comfort and understanding that had grown between them. Ollie, still smiling, entered her room, not realizing how late it had gotten. Overwhelmed by fatigue yet filled with a serene joy, she fell asleep almost immediately, her thoughts calm and content. However, the peace was abruptly shattered by the howling wind of a brewing storm. The fierce gusts rattled her windows, which she had forgotten to secure in her earlier reverie. Startled awake by the clamor, Ollie hurried to shut the windows against the encroaching tempest. Her heart raced not just from the sudden awakening, but from the pressing realization of the morning's urgency. With the storm as a grim soundtrack, Ollie prepared for what she knew had to be done. The household was quiet. The early chaos of breakfast clearing left a silence that was punctuated only by the occasional thunderclap. Dressed now as one of the maids, Ollie moved stealthily towards the forbidden room, her every step fueled by a mix of dread and determination. She reached the door, her hand trembling as she inserted the key. But in that moment, a profound sense of foreboding washed over her. Was she ready to uncover what lay beyond? Her heart pounded, her thoughts a whirlwind as loud as the storm outside. With a deep, steadying breath, Ollie made a decision that would change everything. She stepped back, leaving the mysteries of the room and the burdens they might hold unexplored. As Ollie rushed back to her room, heart hammering with guilt, she hurriedly hid the items she had impulsively taken, items she no longer dared claim as her own. Alone in her room, she exhaled a long, shuddering breath, grateful for the silence that confirmed her secret remained safe. In the calm that followed, she resolved to forget her reckless impulse and hoped for a quiet evening to ease her nerves. That evening, which began like any other, took an unexpected turn when she joined her mother in law for a horseback ride across the vast estate. The ride left her spirits uplifted, yet as they returned, her father in law's presence at the entrance caught her off guard. His smile, half warm, half enigmatic, chilled her as he greeted her with a remark about her apparent enjoyment. Before she could fully regain her composure, he beckoned her to follow him, dismissing her mother in law with a nonchalant peck on the cheek. Led down a familiar corridor, Oli's earlier apprehensions resurfaced, magnifying with each step. The path they took was the same one she had wandered down days before, a path she had promised herself never to revisit. Yet here she was, following the man who held all the answers she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. In the privacy of a dimly lit study, her father in law turned to her, his expression somber. Ollie, there's something important I need to show you, something about my son, your husband, who you believe is abroad. His words hung heavy in the air, and as he led her to a locked door at the end of the hallway, the truth unraveled itself in the most heart-wrenching way. The room she was forbidden to enter housed a reality too painful to digest. Her husband, far from the vibrant man she had imagined, was bedridden, his life reduced to the confines of this hidden chamber. Sir Alex's voice broke as he revealed the lifetime of illness that shackled his son to solitude, a secret he had borne alone until now. The shock overwhelmed Oli and she collapsed, the room spinning wildly around her as the family doctor and her mother-in-law rushed in to assist. In the days that followed, Oli wrestled with the deceit and the reality of her new family. She grappled with feelings of betrayal and compassion, her heart torn between resentment and a deepening sense of duty. Sir Alex, burdened by his own sorrows, sought her forgiveness, sharing tales of his past struggles and the dreams he once harbored for his son. As Oli's strength returned, so did her resolve. She decided to stay, not out of obligation, but from a profound connection that grew from the shared grief and understanding with her father in law. She chose to face the future not as a victim of circumstances, but as a pillar of strength for a family that, despite its flaws, had shown her the true meaning of resilience and love. Embracing her role within this complex family dynamic, Ole found a new purpose. She cared for her husband with a tender devotion, bringing light to his shadowed existence and in time mending the fractures within the family with her unwavering spirit and boundless capacity to love. From the moment his son took his first breath, Sir Alex had dreams of a vibrant future for him, a future filled with the joys of music, which the boy embraced from an early age. At 8, he was not just a child, but a budding musician, igniting the stage at his school concert. Sir Alex remembered that day vividly, the pride swelling in his chest as he watched his son perform. But that bright moment was soon overshadowed by tragedy. The sudden death of his wife cast a long dark shadow over their lives. Grief engulfed Sir Alex, leading to a nervous breakdown that left him inconsolable, his tears a constant presence. Unbeknownst to him, each episode of despair deeply affected his young son, who began to retreat into a shell of fear. The child, witnessing his father's anguish, felt the world around him crumble, screaming for help as he saw his father collapse time and again. When Sir Alex finally emerged from his own darkness, he noticed the change in his son, the fear, the trembling. Desperate, he sought medical help, only to be told his son needed not just physical care, but the emotional support of a mother figure. Determined to do whatever it took to heal his child, Sir Alex remarried, hoping to restore some semblance of normalcy to their shattered lives. Yet despite his efforts, his son's condition worsened, puzzling doctors with symptoms that defied explanation, but no diagnosis fit perfectly. His son's mysterious ailment remained a cruel puzzle, his health deteriorating rapidly, leaving him trapped in a silent world devoid of the music he once loved. Sir Alex watched helplessly as his son's vibrant spirit was whittled away, the boy eventually losing his ability to hear, speak, or see, his tears a silent testament to his suffering. Amidst this heartbreak, Sir Alex confessed to Ollie, his voice laden with sorrow, that no amount of wealth could ease this pain. He had built an empire, hoping one day to pass it on to his son, yet fate had other plans. Now he vowed to dedicate his life to his son, promising to love and protect him with even greater fervor than he would a healthy child. As Sir Alex shared his story, tears streamed down Ollie's cheeks. For the first time, she understood the depth of his sorrow and the reason behind his somber demeanor. She too felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of his love and the tragedy that had befallen their family. In this moment, their grief intertwined, and together they faced the painful reality of the situation. In a moment of stark revelation and raw emotion, the air between Ole and Sir Alex was thick with tension. The elder's voice was firm, almost a growl as he declared, "Now that you have heard his voice and it has startled you, I don't know your plans, but you are not leaving." Oli, tears streaming down her face, responded with a mix of despair and confusion. "Why?" she cried out. "Why? Don't you see that there is nothing to be done?" Her voice was a soft mutter amid her sobs, the weight of her helplessness pressing down on her. Yet Sir Alex's reply came with a surprising tenderness, contrasting sharply with his earlier sternness. "There is," he insisted gently. "The doctor said he needed love. That is the only medicine. He may not be himself, but I know that wherever his mind is, he can understand the strong power of love. He needs someone to call his own. That's the way I see it." This exchange laid bare the complicated layers of the situation. Sir Alex's steadfast belief in the power of love as a healing force against Oli's palpable grief and uncertainty about the future. It was a pivotal moment that would define the path forward, not just for Oli, but for the fragile soul whose fate hung in the balance. Now she was sobbing, with tears running down her cheeks. Sir Alex stood up from where he was sitting and went towards the window. He didn't want her to see his tears. Her words had seemed to bring back all the bitter memories he had. "Why didn't you fight, Alex?" she called out as if he were hearing her. "Do you know that I once fought for my life? I guess my life is made up of stories, as long as I can remember. I have been fighting for my life. Once I was dying of food poisoning. I had eaten a poisonous mushroom while I was trying to survive, but I fought even when I saw that I was dying. My hands were twisting, but I held on. Why didn't you fight? Alex, can you hear me? Why did you bring me here to break my heart? Is that a no? No, big boys don't break their loved one's heart." So she cried and wept, and Sir Alex was forced to take her away from the room. Oli touched the very heart of Sir Alex, and so from time to time he laughs, although he still doesn't get along with his stepson. He has seen that he has interest in Oli, and it made him sad. He had called him privately and told him to keep away from her. Sam did not argue. He knows that what he was saying was true. He had fallen in love with her. He had a girlfriend before, but since he started having feelings toward Oli, things didn't seem to work out. Again, he had tried to force himself several times, but was not working. He hadn't planned it, but it had happened. He had to find a solution soon. He needed someone to talk to, someone who could advise him. So he went to his friend Charles, but he soon realized that Charles was beginning to like Oli too. Sam was angry and decided to leave quickly. "Now I know why he always called to know how she was faring," he thought. He warned Charles before leaving never to speak about out. When Sam saw that Oli has decided to stay even though her joy was limited, he felt for her. How could she be happy when her husband is ill? He thought, It was a tough decision that she had made, but as he promised, he would support her. So one afternoon, he forced her out from the house and took her to the beach. There, he opened his heart to her, told him everything about himself and the problem he had been having with his girlfriend, all because of her. Ollie had laughed and told him to be careful lest she gives him a hot water bath. Both had laughed at the joke. They were all alone for the first time and they loved it. Ole was not angry anymore with Sam for openly expressing how he felt towards her. She didn't want him to feel guilty. She still had a man in her life and she would always love him. She then pleaded with Sam to try and make peace with his father, and he agreed. They were happy riding home after their picnic, but it was all shattered when they reached home and met their father. He had come back and could not find Oli. All hell broke loose when he learned that Sam had taken her to the beach. He shouted at his wife and angrily waited for their return. It was sad when they later came back because he slapped him so hard and warned him not to repeat it. Sam was sad. He couldn't control his anger and things were getting out of hand, he thought. His plan was to leave the house, but Oli and her mother had pleaded with him. Today was a very special day in the family of Sir Alex Desmond. It is always his tradition to celebrate his son's birthday. Ole had not been part of it until it came around again. Sir Alex had prepared to make it more special since all was working well as he had planned. As he thought Alex had not been able to be present at his birthday, now he had someone to represent him. He would be proud to show off his son's beautiful wife. But on that very day, as the celebration was going on, Oli suddenly went upstairs when she felt that the party was in full swing. She too had her own special plan. They had suddenly felt her absence and thought maybe she'd gone to refresh herself. But just as they were laughing and chatting, they suddenly felt a hush. Soon all stood still, looking in one particular direction. At first, Sir Alex hadn't noticed anything as he laughed, but when he saw his friends, attention directed to a place he was forced to look. He looked and he quickly dropped his glass of wine. Sam had, on seeing her, had gone to help. He too was taken aback as he saw her wheel his brother towards the parlor. Their father was in a rage. "You fool! Who told you to bring him here?" "Nobody told me," Oli said, gently leaving the wheelchair and facing him. "For years you've kept him bound in one place like an animal." She too snarled. "You never wanted anyone to see him. You are ashamed to show off your son just because he is sick." He couldn't stand it anymore. He could not bear it as he screamed, "Stop! Stop it!" His face turned away from her. He told her that she was hurting him. She told him that now he had no control over his sick son. "But he is my son," he shouted. "And he is my husband," she replied. "Or have you forgotten? Now I make decisions for him. I know that if he were in his right sense, he would not be in his room while they celebrate his birthday. But I love my son," he groaned. "I love him too, Papa, and I love you," she said. She then warmly embraced her father-in-law. "Forgive me, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I felt for once let him have a breath of fresh air." The crowd stood still and watched. That day they saw a different side of Sir Alex as he wept. It was not long after his birthday that young Alex quietly died in his room. That very day, the wife had gone as usual to attend to his needs and found him dead. She had screamed and they all came running to his room. On seeing what had happened, the mother-in-law had led her away from the room as Sam and his father cried over the deceased. "I know it," Sir Alex cried. He had waited for someone who would love him, someone who would mourn him when he was gone. She did it. He laughed and cried at the same time. At the burial, Oli confessed that he had won as she read the funeral oration. As his father had wished, it had happened to him. He had love. He came and said goodbye to all his friends the day I took him out of his room. "Nothing shall trouble him anymore. Good night, my sweetheart." It was touching, and people were unable to hold their tears. Oli's mother was there. The father-in-law groaned within him, but he was satisfied on how it all ended. Although he still feared that Ollie might decide to leave, and he had grown to love her as his own daughter, he was ready to adopt her. As Oli sat alone in her bedroom that evening, her mind swirled with questions and endless searches for answers. She found herself reflecting on her journey to the Desmonds, a chapter of her life that now felt shrouded in mystery. She longed for a divine explanation, a clear understanding of where she had gone wrong. Was she destined to embark on such a path, or had it all been a cruel twist of fate? She craved closure, a sense of peace to soothe her restless heart. Her thoughts drifted to the vivid dream she had on her first night in that household, a dream so strange and unsettling that it lingered in her memory like an unanswered riddle. Could it hold the key to the questions that plagued her now? Oli would never forget the dream she had the first night she spent in the large shadow filled house that was now her home. The evening celebrations had drained her, leaving her grateful for the solitude of her new room. Her exhaustion was profound, teetering on the edge of collapse, a stark reminder of the long journey that had brought her there. With assistance from her maid, she quickly prepared for bed, her mind a whirl of thoughts and quiet prayers. As she slipped into sleep, her consciousness weaved into a vivid dream. She found herself at the threshold of a grand church, resplendent in a wedding gown, her face lit with anticipatory smiles. Inside, her husband to be awaited, his presence a beacon of the life they were to embark upon together. Yet as a bridal train approached, a small boy, barely more than a toddler and clutching her bouquet, advanced towards her. As he reached her, his hands uncertain and shaky, let the bouquet tumble to the ground. The flowers scattered, petals detaching as they hit the floor, disintegrating into ash at her touch. Despite her attempts to gather them, the petals disintegrated further, marring her hands with their dusty remains, leaving behind nothing but the echo of what was meant to be whole. Upon awakening, Oli pondered the meaning of this unsettling dream. It was only later, as she came to understand the full scope of her husband Alex's lifelong illness, the sickness that had gripped him since he was as young as the boy in her dream, that the pieces fell into place. The boy, confused and helpless with the bouquet, represented Alex, innocent and unchanged in spirit, yet trapped in a body that had betrayed him. This realization cast a somber shadow over her initial understanding of her marriage and the man she thought she knew. The next day, Sam had wasted no time in telling her his plans, how he feels towards her, and her mother was pestering her, either Sam or Charles, but she was not leaving here empty handed. When the burial and mourning were over, Oli too was happy the way it ended. She was happy to have stayed. She was happy that she didn't quit, as she wouldn't have forgiven herself if she had left. She was proud of herself. She heard all that everybody had to say. She loved Sam. He had been the Alex she knew since she first arrived. Charles too was not bad, but she was not in a hurry to get married right away. I will go and come back. Anyone that has waited for me, I will marry, Oli said. When Sam heard her decision, he knew she was right again. She needed a rest and also time to think. He too decided it was time he left his mother so that she could enjoy her marriage. As Ollie and Sam packed their belongings, the atmosphere in the grand old house was thick with emotion and impending change. Sir Alex, grappling with the reality of his age and the departure of his son, felt the weight of the empty halls that once echoed with the life and energy of his family. He had come to a painful realization as the final days approached. Although he had believed that Oli's departure was inevitable, her role in healing his family now fulfilled, he couldn't shake the hope that she might choose to stay. Her presence had brought a new perspective to his life, showing him the joy and the pain of opening one's heart fully. Despite this, he knew deep down it was not just her absence that would leave the house feeling hollow. Sam's decision to leave also loomed over him, stirring a mix of regret and desperation. In his earlier years, Sir Alex's pride had often been his guiding force, but now as he faced his twilight years, the stark need for reconciliation and family unity became clear. He needed Sam, not just to carry on his legacy, but to fill the quiet with warmth and purpose once more. On the day of their departure, as Sam stood at the threshold, suitcase in hand, ready to step into a new chapter away from the shadows of the past, Sir Alex's resolve crumbled. The tough exterior that had defined him for so long gave way to a father's love, raw and exposed. My son, Sir Alex cried out, his voice breaking as Sam turned to face him. You will not leave me. It was the first time Sir Alex had ever referred to Sam so directly as his son, not just in title but with all the emotional weight it carried. Sam, taken aback by the intensity of the moment, saw the years of distance and misunderstanding melt away in his father's tearful eyes. There was no need for words. The heartfelt plea was enough to bridge the gap that had formed between them over the years. They moved towards each other, almost instinctively, and embraced, a father and son finally acknowledging their bond without reservations. This emotional reconciliation marked a new beginning for both as they promised to rebuild not just the relationship that had frayed, but the family that had started to drift apart. As Ole watched the tender scene unfold, she realized that her journey with his family had taught her about the depths of forgiveness and the resilience of love. She might have come to heal one person, but in the end, she helped mend a family. And as they stood together, Sir Alex, Sam, and Oli, there was a sense of hope that whatever the future held, they would face it as a united family. With hearts a little lighter and spirits slightly brighter, they prepared to navigate the complexities of their intertwined lives, knowing that while the paths ahead might diverge, their renewed bonds would endure the tests of time. The end. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey through love, conflict, and redemption. Oli's decision to stay despite the challenges posed a critical question about the power of commitment and the complexities of familial bonds. Was she right in her choice? What do you think about the resolutions made by each character? If this story moved you or sparked reflections on your own experiences with love and forgiveness, I would love to hear your thoughts. Your insights enrich our discussions and help us all grow. Please share this story if it resonated with you and stay tuned for more explorations into the depths of human relationships. Subscribe for updates on new stories and thank you once again for your engagement and support. Your participation truly brings these narratives to life.